like there's no tomorrow.
Welcome to the BingKing podcast.
I'm ready.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I have David here with me, and we're here to talk about the bands.
The bands, yay.
It's crazy how many people have called me over this. It's wild. I did not know that this thing would be such a big commotion.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
It's a question with many layers.
Correct.
Personally, should I just go into my overall thoughts?
Actually, let's go over what was banned today.
Yeah,
Or
okay.
Yesterday
So-
or 2 days ago?
2 days
It's a couple
ago.
days
It
ago,
feels
yeah.
longer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there were 4 cards banned
Mm-hmm.
for different reasons, and they fall into 2 categories. 3 of them fall into one category, which is they
Fast mana.
produce fast mana and a lot of advantage. And the other one was banned just because it's sort of an inherently broken, slow card that is very powerful. So if we talk on that one first, because it's easier, and I think most people accept that it's one that should be banned. It's a card called Nadu
Yeah.
Winged Wisdom. It's a Simic bird, but whenever you target it or any of your creatures, you get some advantage. I think it's card draw and lands or
Yeah.
something like that.
Flip the top of your library if it's a land, etc. Yeah.
It appeared in Modern Horizons 3. It's promptly been banned in Modern and various other places.
Correct.
And there was an article released by the person who designed it a little while ago talking about they designed it for Commander, really, and they'd made some missteps. And
Yeah.
because they admitted to the missteps, of course, this person was slaughtered. But it's quite refreshing to have someone come out and say, yeah,
I just
I
messed up.
kind of messed that one up.
Yeah.
So I don't think it will be. I don't think its ban comes as a surprise, and I don't
think so either.
particularly think it'll be missed.
I didn't play against it. Did you play against it in our playgroup?
It was cast against me by Ming, and I instantly killed it.
Okay.
I
But
actually,
it wasn't his commander, was it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I seem to recall it's a while ago now, but I was actually thinking of putting it in a bird deck because it's
Yeah.
a bird. I like birds.
Right.
But my bird deck's Azorius. If I had like a Bant bird deck, I'd have probably put it in just as a
One of the
a
99.
lightning rod.
Yeah.
But as a commander itself, there are certain cards that just go really well with it, like Lightning Greaves, and there's another card called Shuko,
Yeah.
which you probably heard got spiked in price
Huge.
massively.
In fact, someone called me like when that was going on, and he was like, "Hey, do you remember? It was the mono red equipment deck that I had.
Yeah.
Do you have the Shuko in there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have it." He was like, "Can I get it off?" And I was like, "I'll just give it to you." And then I found out it was actually worth something.
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's
whatever.
spiked.
Who cares?
Yeah.
So it's zero. It's just a zero art. What is it? Zero equip cost, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite easy to throw on Nadu.
Yeah. And while we're there, let's note that price spike, because I think that price spike is an important thing to refer back to later
Sure.
when I share some of my thoughts.
Yeah.
A card comes out and another card spikes massively in price.
Yeah.
That's something I think worth considering.
I mean, let's go over the other 3 cards first.
So the other 3 are Mana Crypt.
Mana Crypt.
Mana Vault's still there.
Yeah,
Mana
that one's
Crypt
still there.
is it's a 0 mana artifact, and it taps to add 2 mana. But at the beginning of your turn, you flip a coin, and if you lose the flip, it deals 3 damage to you. There is, what's the other one?
Jeweled Lotus.
Jeweled Lotus. That was a commander-only card where you sack it for 3 mana of any color, but you can only use it to cast your commander. And the other one was Dockside Extortionist,
Correct.
which probably the next in line that people were most waiting to see a ban on, which is a 2 mana goblin. And when it enters, you make that many treasures equal to the number of artifacts and enchantments, your opponents control. And these 3 cards that have been banned, the reason given essentially by the rules committee who've made this decision is that it basically making the pace of the format too soon, too fast. They didn't ban Sol Ring, which is similarly egregious in that way, but the reason for that is that they see it as sort of a badge of commander card.
Yeah.
It's sort of grandfathered in the format.
Similar to Legacy's Brainstorm.
And it would also, I presume, instantly make all of Wizards' back product illegal. So probably they don't want to poke that particular
But they do
hornet's
that,
nest.
right? Like they've done that before with, what do you call it? The standard challenger decks.
Yeah.
Remember? Like
Yeah,
I think Chandra or something was banned and it was still in their precons that they were building for.
Yeah.
So like they've done that before.
They have.
But the backlog of all those commander decks having Sol Ring and potentially all of their future stuff that's coming out, I don't think they would risk it either.
Probably not, no.
But it does fit with the fast mana kind of ban all at once.
It
like
does.
it was a big chop.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think some of the people who are particularly irked by the bans are pointing to this as a kind of double standards.
Yeah.
You know, and a couple of people have said to me, "Oh, so would you ban Sol Ring as well?" And my answer has been, "Actually, yeah, I would. Actually,
I would too.
I wouldn't mind that. I'm not calling for it to be banned, but I wouldn't object. Like when I'm sitting down to play Commander, ideally I just want to have a fun game with my mates and have a good time. And a turn, like, just watch next time someone casts a turn 1 Sol Ring, they probably win the game.
Yeah.
If you just see, all right, someone casts it, just keep an eye out. End of the game, who won the game?
Right.
It's so often the person with the turn 1 Sol Ring. It's
Sure.
sort of an innocuous thing that kind of happens. So, were Sol Rings not in the game, I wouldn't object because I think it makes games more interesting. Yeah. But I'm not gonna, you come for my Sol Ring? No.
But I mean, like Mana Vault is up there too. Like, why didn't Vault get banned? So it just feels like.
I suppose the downside is meaningfully worse. So taking 3 damage off a Mana Crypt when you're at 40 life to start, it's negligible if you're getting off to a really fast start and just steamrolling. Whereas, for instance, Mana Vault or Grim Monolith, these kind of things, you do have to build around them in some way.
A little bit, yeah. Get your own way to untap them.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. So I think first, let me ask you, how many of these cards do you have in your decks?
Oh, 0.
0.
I actually banned them for myself 2 years ago. I have my own personal ban list. That's for me.
Yeah.
And there are cards on it that are legal and cards on it are banned. But I've got a Dockside, a Jeweled Lotus, and a Mana Crypt.
In the binders.
In the binders, yeah. And I occasionally, when there's a tournament, I'll rustle them out. But I just didn't really like the way they played, the advantage they gave me. They made winning quite easy.
Yeah.
I just didn't enjoy it. So, and also, I prefer playing at the more silly, casual level anyway, where you're having a laugh. I don't really feel. So I actually 0, and it was interesting. One of the people in our playgroup posted, okay, everyone post your number for how many of your decks you've had to change because of this ban, and they posted 21. 21, yeah.
Woof.
They play a lot of CDH and they enjoy the higher power level as well. It's fair enough, right? If you enjoy that. But then quite a lot of people were like, none,
0,
1, but because it's in my pirate deck, and it was quite refreshing to see.
Our group is pretty good like that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just interesting to see because the other side of this as well, you're going to be like, imagine if you've got loads of these cards and you've invested in them essentially, and Wizards as a company has sort of encouraged you to chase them, and you've picked up like fancy alternative versions and you've got them in your deck and you just love the art and all of that. Say you've got something awful, let's say you've got like 20 of
it's a lot
them combined, you've just lost $2,000 or something because the price tag that they command, because they are powerful pieces and chase pieces, you have to pay out of the pocket for these cards, and you really like having them in this deck because you like playing CDH or you like playing at a high power level. All of a sudden, you've really been screwed over.
Correct.
And I think that's where a lot of the anger's coming from as well, in a way.
I think so. I think the anger is really coming from what I understand, is that it was too much too quickly. I've talked to a lot of my Chinese friends, and they were saying if they just only did it, let's say every couple months, maybe every half year, took another one off, then took another one off, they would have been okay with it. right? Because it was more or less like a death by 1,000 cuts. Like if you just took Dockside from me today, maybe within a year you took Lotus or Mana Vault, and then another year you took Lotus. Most people, I think, would have been okay with it. There would have been a little bit of uproar, but all three at once, without much warning, I think is really what shook people.
Yeah, I sort of disagree, actually.
Okay.
I respect the opinion, and I can see the opinion as well, because it's such a... If you're playing at that level and you've spent a lot of money on it, I get it. But, I mean, we've already been talking about how can you ban this and not that?
Yeah.
And with Sol Ring, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can you ban Jeweled Lotus and not Mana Crypt? How can you ban Dockside and not those? It would be... they can't win. So I think this is a clean cut.
It's as clean as you can get without the Sol Ring.
Yeah, and it's a statement. It's not this one card is causing it. This is a problem. They actually said since Strixhaven, there's been so many cards that have been printed in the mid game that when you ramp out,
I saw that,
you can't come back. And one of the benefits of Commander is that there's a way you can go ahead and be the arch enemy, but you can be reined in.
Correct.
And they were noting that was just happening less and less.
Do you see that though?
Well, yes and no, but the thing is, within our play group, we're actually, I think, pretty unique in a way in the way that we communicate the games we're playing and so on. And to be honest, there will be some times where somebody will have a busted deck where they're playing those cards and they will just steamroller us and we can't come back. That does happen, and those players tend to struggle more than others when looking for people to play against. I've noticed. I
noticed that as well.
But at the same time as well, like the fact that so our playgroup can't necessarily be seen, but Wizards presumably and the rules committee. Sorry, I shouldn't conflate the two, even though there is an argument to say they are kind of conflated at this point. I think that I've lost my train of thought. I think that it must be seen as a significant enough problem that they felt the need to take action. And
cut it cleanly as possible.
As cleanly as possible, and to make a statement. And it has really divided people as to whether that's the right thing to do. But I do think where the divide has fallen is the people who played those cards are mad that they can't play them anymore. Yeah. And mad, obviously, that they've lost money and feel deceived. All very valid points. Whereas the players that don't play those cards, they either find it quite amusing or a relief, because now finally they can actually sit, because some people just don't tell the truth about the power of their decks. They'll say, oh yeah, it's a 6, it's an upgraded precon. Right. What have you upgraded it with? Oh, just a nuclear warhead, you know. Do you know what I mean? It's just just a gentle 6, you know. Right. And so the players who are genuinely playing at the lower level, where they're having this experience of, oh, it's Dockside, is it? Oh, it's gone in. Oh, I'm dead. Right. Okay. They don't have to do that anymore. There's 3 significant, strong cards that really power out in the early game that are no longer there. As for the point about, well, some cuts now, other cuts later, I imagine there are other cards on the list that...
I think so too.
Yeah, there are cards on my personal ban list. Yeah. I can tell you what those are.
Go for it.
That I don't play anymore. Smothering Tithe. Rhystic Study.
Yeah.
The One Ring. I do play it in my Lord of the Rings only decks. Sure. But I also play Savvy Hunter in those because it's the Lord. But I don't play that in a normal deck. So
those are coming next.
Possibly.
I think Rhystic Study and Smothering Tithe are egregious, along with Mystic Remora. I think that these 3, if I were to be the RC, I'd make those cuts like quick as well. If this is any sign of the future, like why not just make those slightly taxing and annoying salty cards? Give me another big cut then.
Possibly. For me, I wouldn't call for them to be banned, but what I would say is I've won enough cards with Rhystic Study, enough games with a lot of cards. I've won enough games with Rhystic Study that I personally don't run it anymore because. But for me, it's dissatisfying. Like, I'd win a game where Rhystic Study drew me 15 cards, and it's like, did I win that game, or did that card win me that game? And also, because the other thing with the money is because it's a card that's very powerful, it's worth a lot of money.
Correct.
So heuristic studies like worth $40. Not everyone's going to spend $40 on one card for their deck. I've only got them because I had them when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay $40 for one. But that's the other sort of side of the coin when people are angry about the ban of your mana crypts. You know, these are $100 plus cards. But also, like, players are to blame for that. And players themselves who always gravitate towards the most busted, the most powerful thing. And that is a thing. If you look at the data for every set, it's always the most powerful cards, always the most that people chase and want, and that inflates the price.
Correct.
So
I would kind of disagree here a little bit.
Yeah.
So it is definitely players, right?
Yeah.
But it's also the speculators in the group.
Yeah.
I don't want to like single out people, but some people will go out and buy a lot of the supply and just be like, well, I've looked at all of the Taobao stores and I've taken, you know, as much as I can from each one because I know that these cards are only going to go up in price and I'm going to try to get as much of the supply as possible. So you can really only come to me or a couple of the other sellers. I've definitely seen that happen.
I hadn't thought of that. I was thinking more worldwide than in a particular group.
Even worldwide, I see people that are trying to get as much off of each of the TCG sellers and just be like, I know this is going to go up. I'm going to speculate highly on this, and I'm going to get them like or right after, I guess, a bump or right before a bump.
Yeah, I don't mind that too much. I guess
Really,
I don't mind it too much because it's the same. It's sort of the same sort of thing with the secret layers, right?
Sure.
And, you know, people are going to, like in ticket touts, people are going to pay what they feel something's worth.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think you can have a really enjoyable, fun game of Commander without buying expensive cards.
I think so too.
I actually think, like, if you're mad that you've lost loads of value from your cards because you've gone out and spent loads of money on them, I understand the validity of those feelings. But at the same time as well, it's like, I mean, those cards are expensive because they're so powerful, and not everyone can afford that, and also like not everyone enjoys playing at that high power level.
Correct.
So it's kind of like the thing when a deck gets banned in Modern, right? And people go, "Oh, I lost $500," and you know, valid feelings. Not saying anything's wrong with that, but it's sort of like you don't need, like in a casual format, you don't need to be constantly pushing and playing at a higher power level to have a nice time.
I think the casual format thing is so important.
Yeah.
I think because we are in a casual format, we shouldn't be thinking that much about having the most powerful deck. But it's unavoidable, right? I mean, that there is a reason that CEDH has become a thing, right? I remember a friend of mine told me a couple of weeks ago that they had tried to come out with a CEDH ban list just to break away from the RC and just try to do their own ban list, which I kind of agree with. Like, I think, take all of those people, let them have their own group, and kind of splinter away from the casualness of EDH. I think that's actually really smart. And I think it didn't really work because I think CEDH still pulls largely from the casual EDH base. And to have an additional rule set, it's just an additional obstacle. So I think that's their biggest problem right now. But if I were a CDH player and I noticed that the RC was completely not caring about my format, which each of these cards has really represented, I would want my own format. Like, you don't care about my format at all. You just banned 4 cards that were possibly in all of my decks. So what am I doing, right?
Yeah.
Just give me my own format.
But at the same time as well, for CEDH players who feel that way, and casual players playing at the higher power level, if you have 4 people who want to play at that power level, and they say, I hate the ban, I don't want to change my deck, can we play a game where we all agree those cards are fine? I think that's okay. You can rule 0 that.
Yeah.
I think the difficulty, though, with that is, like, for instance, if you're playing a game with someone, then you drop a dockside, and they say, sorry, that's a banned card, and then they have a go and say, oh, well, I'm not following the rules committee. Like, that's what, you know, it's something that's important to declare at the beginning of a game.
Correct.
rather than just doing and having an expectation. So I saw quite an argument I thought was made in quite bad faith by someone the other day when everyone was having a row about it all.
Yeah.
And they said that basically they said, like, I'm just going to play it, and if people want to police it, that's fine. And somebody very correctly just sort of said, no, there is a ban list, and we should follow the ban list. And me wanting to follow the rules, that doesn't mean I'm policing anything.
Yeah.
That just means that I respect the rules. If you want to play those cards, you need to clarify with me ahead of the game so that I can opt out of that game.
I'm in complete agreement with that person.
And I think that feeling of, I'm just going to play it, I'm not going to change anything, I think that is going to lead to some arguments.
Yeah.
If someone does that against me, if they just drop a card that is banned and they've not clarified it before the game, then I will just quit the game. I'll do it as politely as I can, but I'll just say, I'm sorry, I'm going to drop, I'm going to scoop, I'm going to play another game because, this
you're not really respecting the game.
And
like,
or
you're
the
not
person.
Yeah.
Or the person.
Correct.
However, I was talking with a couple of players who I've sort of agreed, they're coming off heroin. I've sort of agreed to be their methadone for the weekend, where they want to play with them, and can they still play? And I'll fine, I don't care, I'll do it. That you want to play Dockside and Mana Crypt in a game with me, no problem, because there's a low chance you're going to draw them. I don't really have a problem with them, and I will, if you do play them and win, I will talk about you being a pay-to-win, hollow victory. I'll just tease them. It's fine, but it's important that it's in a, it's clarified at Rule 0. And one of the great things about that, so the people can keep their Docksides and their thing and play with people, consenting others, but it also means that actually that will ensure that power level is kept similar, right? Because
I agree with that.
If somebody comes and says, can I play my Dockside, please? And I'm playing Piana Nomad Captain and Kevin's playing his pirate ship deck, we're just going to politely say, no. No.
Or let me switch decks, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do the high power level thing, I'm more than happy because I brought along something that's equally high powered.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sit here with whatever jank I have and just get run over. That's not a good time.
Yeah.
Like, the ideal game, I think we've talked about this before, is that everyone's deck kind of does what it does. And then whoever wins. But everyone's deck has a potential chance of winning, or at least does its thing. And those are usually the most fun games. Yeah. I just don't want to be sitting here while, you are doing your Nadu thing for 10 minutes and we are not doing anything.
Yeah.
That sounds like a terrible time.
Yeah. And I think another thing to touch on as well is, the Rules Committee have got a lot of flack for this.
Yeah.
And, is it too interventionist as a question? But also, I think that what can't be kind of overstated is the convenience of the time that this ban has been released, in terms of very recently a product was shipped within the US, the convention within a box thing.
Oh, I don't know about this.
So so basically this convention within a box, it's only been shipped out like last week or something.
Okay.
People have been getting them and opening them. So it's got Mystery Booster 2 in it.
I do know this.
And there are 3 collector packs in there as well. But the collector packs are basically, the chase cards are these mythics.
And one of them has a Dockside.
One's got a Dockside, one's got a Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
That's too convenient, huh?
That's
like, and that sort of hints at a bit of a collusion, I think, between, or certainly a compromise, maybe legal embargo, between the Rules Committee's independence and Wizards. And I think that's causing a lot of people to question things, because, if Wizards know that, which presumably they do, they've been informed, and then they're making a product and shipping product that they know is not going to sell in the future.
Right.
People are like excited opening up this thing, and then all of a sudden the chase card they got's banned. That is pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna impact consumer confidence.
Correct.
Like, at the end of the day, Magic players like to think of themselves first and foremost as players, but if a corporation treats you like a customer more and more and more, eventually you're going to feel like a customer, and you're
Right.
going to fall out of love with it. You're going to be less likely to invest. You're going to be less likely to trust. And I think that this is the biggest thing about this is the loss of money and the loss of trust. You know, I don't think the next time a really busted card comes out, I think people are going to think twice before investing fully, especially if there are already talks about this is too powerful, this might get banned, this goes against.
Josh Lee Kwai mentioned it recently, and he was talking about how, because we all kind of played in that same era, and he was talking about when Chronicles came out. And Chronicles had reprinted a bunch of the legends, and there were a bunch of people that just left the game because they did not trust that Wizards would not continue to reprint their valuable cards into the dust. Yeah. And if, you know, I had whatever popular legend at the time was and it was worth something, and then you print a white-bordered version of it, and this thing's now worth nothing, I don't know if I can keep my money in this game, which is why they came out with the reserve list afterwards. And they were like, look, we're not going to reprint these cards ever again. But when this kind of thing happens, it makes people wonder, sure, there are cards that are slightly more expensive than the reserve list ones now. Is there some sort of contract? There really isn't. They can kind of print whatever they want and ban whatever they want. And that's terrifying. That's, for most players, it's very terrifying. But even more so for stores, I think. For a card shop to have X amount of inventory of these cards and just all of a sudden, especially Jeweled Lotus, which is only playable in Commander. That's...
And in the recent set was like literally on the packaging and was the chase. Yeah.
It's really worrying. You know, the big store in Beijing, Beijing Kado, they said 6 figures. They're down 6 figures just within a night. You know, like, what do you do about that? I have all of this, you know, inventory that I now literally cannot sell. It's just no one's gonna buy this card.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah. So that worries me, especially for the stores.
Yeah.
More than, let's say, for like people like Trev who are collectors. I mean, that sucks for them. But like the stores that we actually play at, are they the place that our hobby kind of like relies on? And if those go under, that's tough. You know, that's a death blow.
So do you think in this instance then, because you've thought about at this level more than I have, do you think that it was a bad decision on the whole or a good decision?
It's a complicated topic, right? Yeah. If it were me, I would have done the layered. I think the layered ban would have been better.
Yeah.
And I think people have brought up a watch list. I think a pre-warning watch list really does help. You know, just to be like, hey, look, these things are on our watch list. They're not banned yet, but they potentially might be. I think that helps. You know, just to give a little bit more clarity into just what potentially might happen in the future, whether it does or not.
Does it though? Like, I agree. I quite like the idea. But actually what that's doing is it's giving you sort of like, for those in the know, it's giving you a chance to
sell out,
short your stock, right? Or to get out while you can. And then people are still being screwed over. And also the artificial value that's put on a card isn't, you know, people still have those cards. They still actually have them it's just the value we attach to them. So, and also I think if you put, like, let's say, you say, we have this watch list, and you say, okay, Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study and a few other cards are on this watch list. The values of those cards is going to drop anyway, right? Because people are less likely to pay that much for them. And
correct.
But the actual cards are still the same. Like, people still have them. I don't know. I think it's more, you know, like in grief, there's like the 5 stages, and there's like anger. I think that's sort of like the pleading stage. Eventually, you'll accept. Right. But we're at the pleading stage.
I think so too.
With that,
but I because I used to be in finance, I understand that after, you know, the board meeting, you try to tell all of your shareholders, this is what we talked about. This is really where we're headed. Yeah. And that really does bring a level of trust. Yeah. You're like, look, I kind of know what I need to do. If this company is moving in this direction. Maybe it's not somewhere I want to be. And then there will be people, I think, that are just like, yeah, I know Ristic Study is on the watch list. I still think it'll be a couple years before this card gets to the ban list. Let me buy it anyways and play with it for that X amount of time. I think people will still make that value decision and then decide whether or not they want to, which I think is reasonable.
I have another question for you. I'm
Go
sorry, I'm flipping it on you.
No, I love this.
Do you think that the some people have said, get rid of the rules committee, this is nonsense, this is, Commander's meant to be an anti-rules game away from Wizards. Do you think the increase of Wizards' focus on Commander and the rule committee trying to shape what the format is looking like, do you think on the whole this is a negative thing or a positive thing?
I mean, you before me.
It's something that I hear a lot as an argument, and I actually think that a rules committee with a ban list is a good thing, but that is a selfish point of view because it so rarely affects me until they come for my coveted jewel, and then I'll be on the streets with a flaming torch. But it doesn't, that kind of thing, because of the level I play at, I can sort of say, oh yeah, I think it's a good thing that Coalition Victory is banned. I think it's a good thing that Thassa's Oracle might eat a ban in the future. Like, I actually think, and I have a level of trust, but for a lot of people, they feel as though the rules committee in this occasion, they're being too interventionist and shaping. And curating, I wonder what you think about it, because I'm fine with the bans, but
as a whole, I'm with you. And I think the rules committee is necessary. It's weird to say, but necessary for Magic players because we're so bad at communication. I think there's a large percentage of Magic players who are very bad at Rule Zero. And they're very bad at communication in general. And you want, in a perfect world, we would all talk a couple minutes before and really agree on something and just let's play. But I know so many Magic players that are just not like that. And I don't know if it's a lack of ability to communicate, but I think our play group needs more rules for now. Maybe in the future when people are better at this Rule Zero thing, or it becomes more natural to the larger percentage, then maybe you can kind of let the rules go. But I'm mostly with you. I think that I don't think there needs to be that many rules. Like, your play group should just play your rules because it's casual.
Yeah, and I do think that, like, for the players who are like, I just want to play the cards I like and play against you. I think that's fine. I think when you start to have to dig and say, okay, so when you say that, what do you actually have in your deck? And when they start becoming evasive and then they drop a dockside and this, and you're kind of like, oh, well,
why?
It's just such a waste of my time. I only get a few days a week or a few evenings or hours at a weekend when I can do this, and I just don't want to go through this again. So there is that line, but I think it's quite interesting just how angry some people have got by it. But I think it ultimately comes down to the money, and it ultimately comes down to,
I think so too.
They just
money and trust,
But the thing is, those players can still play the cards. So you just have to find people who also feel that way, and then you play them together. You have the Rule Zero and say, hi, can we play our dockside? Yeah, okay, let's play.
I have a theory that people are making fewer and fewer friends. Especially in this generation. And while Magic really pushed that, travel the world, make friends, play Magic, I don't see that happening as often as they say it is. I see a lot of people going to maybe a different city, even if they bring a deck, they're not making friends. They're kind of there to like smash people and then leave. And then I'm just like, why'd you do that?
It's the Tinder principle.
It's that's an interesting way of putting it. That's kind of what it's like, right?
And swipe right.
Yeah. And it's not, there aren't real friendships being built, or fewer friendships being built. And so they're finding less opportunities to, I guess, build a good group of friends and just like play. And I'm very grateful for our play group because I think that we have a pretty good group. For the most part, we try to communicate as much as we can, and that really helps. You know, that helps the longevity of the group, I think. It's pretty difficult to, and I think in our group, I would be more willing to loosen the rules. Whereas I think in a convention, like if we went to a Magic Con, I think those rules are actually really necessary. You know, because you don't know the players that you're playing with. Everyone's a stranger, and it's good to have a base that everyone kind of is in line with. That's where it becomes important.
I also think that some of the more influential Commander content creators really have a case to answer for these bans because of the way that they themselves have pushed speed and power. So Josh Lee Kwai has kind of been at the center of this, right? Where he's been talking about he doesn't agree with bans. He's resigned from the CAG or whatever it's called, blah, blah, blah. But for the longest while, he's been very much... He seems like a very nice guy. I'm not trying to have a go at him. But he's been sort of pushing the idea that 3 mana rocks are unplayable. And it's two mana now. And oh my goodness, won't Wizards stop playing 2 mana rocks because we can't help ourselves?
Right.
That's nonsense.
I think
everybody has control over their own decks and own power level. Just because Wizards prints a busted card doesn't mean you have to play it. But you've got somebody with a very influential channel who does gameplay videos and with that opinion, and you know, it's been pushing more and more and more, and this in many ways is a reaction to that. This is saying, nope, we need to slow down, handbrake turn, as what it may be, and these are the main offenders. But that idea that we need to speed up, games need to be over by 45 minutes, 8 turns, like this is, you know, you reap what you sow, and this is what you've been given, you've got. So I think the some of the content creators need to actually think, how much is what I have produced actually contributed to this problem of speed and power and money, you know, and I think they've got to kind of take a look at themselves a bit, really, because the people who have not been affected by this are the people who've seen that content and have been like, nah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to play Lawan Cephalid Empress because it's funny. You know, and we're not affected. Yeah. We're fine. We're doing well.
But this is the first time that the RC has not stood in line. Olivia Goldberg-Hicks has also stood out and been like, I don't agree with this. And she's on the RC, and she was like, against in particular, I believe it was Jeweled Lotus, where she was like, I'm not in agreement with the rest of the team. And previously, all bans, they get announced, they all stand in line, and they say, this is what we all agreed upon, and we're all sticking behind this line. And this is the first time where someone on the RC has set out and been like, nope, I think this is wrong. And it's been unique in just watching the chaos, being like, yeah, I'm actually on, and I hated Jeweled Lotus when it came out. And now I kind of see a reason for it sticking around, you know?
We've not talked about this, actually. Maybe we can go through the cards very quickly and say whether me or you are happy they're banned. Yeah. Not happy, or how to phrase it.
How would you ban
would we ban them, but do you think it needed a ban? Okay. Fair. So, Nadu, did you think it needed a ban?
Well, so, that's not fair. Nadu, I'm neutral, only because I didn't play against it. I was not playing Magic when this thing happened, so I don't have a say. But from all of the information that I've gathered, it seemed like it needed a ban.
Okay, I don't think it needed a ban.
Okay,
because if it's really a problem, it's probably the commander. Yeah, and there is the Rule 0 conversation where you can opt out to play. I don't think it needed a ban. Fair. I can see why it was banned, and also like it just cuts out some decks where people have clearly found it obnoxious. But for me, it is no more egregious than a card like Tergrid. You know, if I see a Tergrid, I just don't play. I just don't, because I've played against it 2 or 3 times, and my face does this thing where it just contorts with rage and anger, and I start saying things like, I hate it. I'm not going to play against it again.
Yeah.
Similarly, if somebody said, "Hey, can I play my Nadu deck?" I'd probably be like, I don't know if I fancy it. I might go to another pod. So and in the 99, I don't see it as a massive problem personally.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have banned Nadu.
Okay. Dockside.
Dockside, yes, 100%.
100%.
I've wanted it banned for a long time.
Same.
Just because it just combos with a sneeze.
It's so easily recurable. It's not a fun game.
It's been in my trade binder for about a year, and no one has taken it off me.
And no one's going to.
No one's going to now. It's still there, just a relic. But I'm really glad that one's gone, because it was a really strong card, and it just ruined games. Like, all of us, you'd be having a really interesting game, and then somebody would just play Dockside, flicker it, infinite mana, I win. And it's like, okay.
Thanks.
That's for me, that's a card that
so
I'm
Mana
really
Crypt.
Mana Crypt.
This one's tricky.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's been in the format so long.
That's
the only
how
thing,
I see it too.
The only thing I'd say about Mana Crypt, like for instance, the Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale is legal in Commander, and that is an objectively egregious card.
Yep.
But the fact is, it's not banned because you never see it because it's worth so much money.
Trev is the only person I know that has one.
What, Mana Crypt or a Tabernacle?
Tabernacle.
Okay, I've not seen that, but either it's Mana Crypt has been like a $200 card plus, but it's had a lot of reprints. Yeah. So now, because a lot of people have opened it and have got it, it's now actually more commonly seen, and therefore it's probably reared its head as people finding it more of a problem.
Correct.
So I suppose it, in that regard, and the reasons that they've given, I can see why it gets a ban. But I think I'd have gone full measure potentially and also banned Sol Ring if that's what I was really feeling. I don't particularly have a problem with Mana Crypt, and I don't think I would ban it, but I accept the ban. I understand the reasons.
I understand the reasons well, and I would have banned it. I think I would have been.
Okay.
I'm with you. I think if I took it, I would have taken Sol Ring along with it.
Yeah.
Like, in a perfect world, Vault as well would have gone.
Yeah. And this could be misconstrued. This could be, David wants to ban. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I do feel that games are more interesting
without
when Ming did that tournament where there was no fast mana, no Sol Rings. It was great. It was a wonderful time. There's an argument to say having Sol Ring counteracts green and blah blah blah, but green still gets Sol Ring. So,
and then Jeweled Lotus is the last one.
I don't know. I would have banned it. But I've not seen situations where it's really problematic.
Yeah.
But I have like seen an Atali coming down on turn 3.
Yep.
And I know that ends a game.
Yep.
And Jeweled Lotus is a damn clear way to do that. So I kind of I get that. I get what they're getting at. The more powerful commanders that are coming out, I understand the reason for the ban, but I do think it was a rule zeroable thing. So I don't know that I'd have banned it, but I'm not going to miss it.
So
I feel like with Mana Crypt as well. I won't banned it, but I'm not going to miss the card.
I've seen it both ways, right? I've seen Jeweled Lotus bring out a 7 CMC commander. That's not that good, but it needed the Lotus, because if you kill a 7 CMC commander, it's 9 to come out again, right? And that's tough. That's a tough game to win then. So I've seen it help very bad commander decks at least get their commander out and get going. But I've also seen it recurred over and over, and that sucks. To just be able to recur a Lotus with whatever. What's the goblin that brings back artifacts?
Goblin Welder?
Yeah, Welder.
Oh yeah, I can see.
Right?
Yeah,
and then just bringing back your Lotus and then replaying your command, like 4 CMC commander. Just over, and then I'm just like, why am I here? So I see both sides, and I wouldn't have banned it. I think it would have. Jeweled Lotus is something that I think Rule 0 would have handled.
And so going back to the earlier point then, are these bans, I know we're probably running out of time, but
That's okay.
Are these bans a result of a failure of Rule 0?
Yes.
Is it we can't trust the children to behave anymore, so we're gonna
That's how I feel.
We're gonna set a new rule.
Yeah.
It's sort of nannying, and in which case a group like ours that is really self-regulated and good at communicating we probably find it a bit of an oversight, whereas for some places or Spell Table Online, it's like, nope, this is now the rule, and they've had to sort of step in. And the rules committee are doing a Principal Skinner, whereas am I wrong? No, the children are wrong, kind of.
I think it's not just Spell Table. I think it is really the resurgence of big Magic events. You know, James Xu went to Amsterdam to play. He was like, there are just a ton of people playing, you know, EDH in the corner. The Shanghai event was pretty big. I heard from Big Arthur that it was pretty big. And just in the big events, you don't know your players.
Yeah.
And even in small versions, a 7 in our group is not a 7 in the local Chinese group. And everyone, because they have different scales, it's so hard to communicate. And in those cases, I think it's necessary for a rule. I think it's necessary for someone overseeing the entire community to put down some basic ground rules. And in that case, I think bans are necessary. And I think it is because we don't rule zero enough. But sometimes you're with complete stranger and you don't communicate well with strangers. And sometimes that happens. And it's nice to have base ground rules. That's how I feel.
Nice.
Yeah. I think we're good on time.
Yeah, I think so. Are we going to see you playing Magic soon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a new deck. I'm enamored with, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Does it involve death?
Yes. A bunch of death. A bunch of mono black death.
Excellent.
But I'm looking to get back, and I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll rule zero our various jeweled lotuses.
We can rule zero. I mean, I think the group doesn't really need that much.
No.
I think we're okay.
I think we'll live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Do, 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 do.